One of the best jobs I ever had was working as a student ambassador at my undergraduate college. I really loved this job because it forced me to get a lot better at meeting new people every day. A big part of our job description was literally mingling with guests. Really, that's because a big portion of the stuff that we did was basically represent the university to donors and other special guests at different events run by our office of the foundation, which is that big donor relations org at our college, and then also the office of the president. So our university president is always meeting with important people in the country and nation, things like people like different mayors, different other legislative people, also other interesting people who are in culture, like actors, just a bunch of different people, right? All these sorts of people are at the special events that us student ambassadors are at. And we're tasked with doing things like running the event, checking people in, of course. And that's also a good way to get better at meeting people and just connecting and being more personable. However, I think the thing I'm most grateful for in terms of becoming more personable through that job was the mingling aspect, because we had to go up to people in mid-conversation. They're chatting with each other. Sometimes there's a circle of people who know each other and they have known each other for years. They're really well-established friends, sometimes even some family members, right? And we're meant to go in very tactfully interrupt that conversation and just join in, right? And that was such a good learning experience, because over the 2.5 years that I did that job, I got a lot better at entering into conversations and not being super awkward about it and just going with it. That was cool because if you think about it, many of us have probably been in a situation where we see a group of people, we don't know any of them, and they're chatting with each other, and maybe we have to ask them for direction or something. That alone is tough, but let's say you want to try to have a sustained conversation with a group of people like that. It's easier said than done, and it does take some practice getting used to that, where you jump in and you can just say something and then just get into a conversation. But to do it tactfully and gracefully takes some effort. And the 2.5 years doing that made me a lot better at that, where I feel now super confident to at least give it a try and jump into a conversation with really anyone. That doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to be super responsive and be like, oh, wow, you're so awesome. I'm glad you joined our conversation. Sometimes people really don't care. They really don't like you. It's whatever. That's just how life is. But a lot of the time, people are going to be either more positively than neutral or pretty glad that you had the confidence to join in. Because keep in mind, all of us out here in the world are just flailing around trying to live life, right? So it's not like people are always going to think, wow, Daniel's so weird for jumping into our conversation. No, a lot of us are thinking, wow, hey, this guy just jumped in our conversation. He doesn't know any of us. That's kind of cool. A lot of times people admire that confidence and initiative just to jump in. And if you're charming and, again, tactful, graceful, and not weird, people are super open to, a lot of the time, super open to getting to know you and just having a nice chat. Even if it's just a one-time chat, hey, okay, cool, nice to meet you. That was a great conversation. Or it can turn into more of a networking connection where you can build more professionally, personally, things like that, which is awesome. So I think really, as we're thinking about how to get better at meeting new people, a big part of it is being willing to take that initiative to just jump into conversations and gracefully, tactfully, not weirdly introducing yourself. It might sound like, okay, cool, Daniel, that's awesome, but what do I do when I'm in that conversation? Don't know anyone, don't know the people. there are some strategies that I think work pretty well a lot of the time that I've learned through things like my job and just on the in the world, just trying stuff out. One big thing is to focus on any commonalities at all. So let's say that I'm at the same event as a group of people who I don't know, but we're all at the same event. That's a nice commonality where you can ask, hey, I'm Daniel, I'm new here, or maybe if you're not new, I'm like, oh, I've been here, blah, blah, whatever. What brings you all to this event? That's already just a starting point, right? And if you're a good listener, you'll be able to keep up with what they're saying. Like maybe someone says, I didn't really want to come here, but my significant other really loves this thing and we came together and I really want to support my significant other. Okay, cool. Then you can ask follow-up questions about, oh, wow, that's awesome. What does your significant other do in terms of blah, blah, blah? Or you can say, oh, well, that's cool that you want to support your significant other in spite of you not being interested in this thing. Is that hard for you to do? Like that, I will say that can be kind of personal. However, it's okay to just lean into stuff and try stuff because people can be pretty guarded or pretty open. And obviously you don't want to go weird and be like, oh, like, how's your relationship with your significant other right now? That's really weird for a very first interaction. But I guess what I'm really trying to say is start with the commonalities, and then you can branch off as you listen well into sub-conversations based on how they respond. And ideally, you'll be able to grow from the small talk to the more meaningful talk pretty quickly. That, I think, is a big goal of meeting people, trying to touch on something that is really important to them. And that brings me to my second point. This is a tip from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you want people to like you, say their name a lot. Something that's really valuable to a person is their name. So if you say it a lot naturally in conversation, that can be a really good way for them to grow more of a fondness towards you, just in general. So you don't want to go crazy. Like if someone's talking to me, what I don't want is for them to be like, oh, Daniel, you just said this, and Daniel, oh, that was so cool. I love that, Daniel, you said this, Daniel, that was awesome. That's excessive, but putting their name naturally into the conversation can be really great. A third thing also from Dale Carnegie's book is if you want someone to feel like they have a good conversation with you, especially when you're just getting to know them, make sure that you get them talking about their own interests. One generalization that the book makes that I think is fair, it's probably an overgeneralization, but I think it's nonetheless a fair point, is this idea that people don't usually care all that much about hearing other people talk about their interests, but they love talking about their own interests. And again, this is an overgeneralization. It's definitely unfair for how it universalizes the human experience, right? However, I think there are grains of truth here where a lot of us, even if we think about our own conversations, we might not be able to capture what the other person said as well as we could what we just said, right? So whether or not we agree with that, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there is a big kernel of truth in what Carnegie's saying, and it's really therefore valuable to get someone talking about their own interests and lean into that. Be able to offer some reflections based on what they're saying. So let's go back to our example. Let's say we're at this event. We start by asking, oh, what brings you to this event? Oh, I'm not interested in these things, but my significant other, okay, it loves these things. Okay, cool. You could ask things like, oh, okay, that's awesome. And what kinds of things are you interested in? Let's say let's say you wanted to do the reverse and your significant other wanted to show up for an event you were really interested in. What would that event be like for you? And they might go into it and be, oh, it's a comic convention, or I would really love to go to a natural history museum. And just ask follow-up questions on that. That already will get the person talking about their own interests. And you can, of course, shift the conversation to other things, more about yourself, say, okay, oh, that's awesome. I have that same interest, or oh, tell me more, things like that. And then that already ends up being a good conversation that came from nothing, which is awesome. So to recap, I would say 3 big things are: be willing to take the initiative to just jump in with tact, grace, and in a not weird way. And people, a lot of the time, will be open to just having a conversation. 2, say a person's name a lot. Once you know their name, say it a lot naturally in the conversation. And then 3, get a person talking about their own interests as much as possible. That can, combined with other things, create a comfortability and fondness, which is super awesome. So I think those are super good to get started as we think about how to meet new people in a more, if I was going to say efficient, that sounds so mechanical, in a better way. So yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks.